They say Christmas is about peace, but on that snowy night in Chicago, peace was tested. A powerful man thought money could silence truth. He thought intimidation could erase kindness. He thought no one would dare stand in his way. But God often works through the unexpected, through a child who refused to look away, through a wounded veteran who chose restraint over violence, through a quiet moment where justice did not shout, it stood firm. What happened next was not revenge, it was karma. And it arrived right on time. If you believe faith still moves in ordinary lives, share this story. Comment where you're watching from. Subscribe for more stories of justice, mercy, and miracles. May God bless you. And may this story remind you that truth always finds its way into the light. Christmas Eve in Chicago, snow fell thick over Chicago, blown sideways by the wind that funneled between glass towers and steel bridges, turning the city into a moving veil of white. Inside Lakeview Hearth, warmth lived in amber light and polished wood, in the smell of roasted meat and cinnamon, in the low murmur of families leaning close across candlelit tables. Laughter drifted easily here, belonging to. At table 12, it stopped. Vivian Caldwell sat alone in her wheelchair, straight-backed out of habit rather than comfort. At 73, she was a tall woman, even seated, long-limbed and narrow-shouldered, her posture still disciplined from decades of command. Her hair, once a deep chestnut, was now silver and pulled into a precise, low bun. Not a strand escaped. Her skin was pale, fine-lined, untouched by cosmetics except a single stroke of muted red at her lips, more armor than vanity. Before her sat a flawless Christmas dinner. Prime rib, glazed carrots, potatoes whipped smooth. Steam had long since vanished. Vivian did not touch it. Her hands rested lightly on the armrests of her chair. They trembled, though she hated that they did. Those hands had signed contracts worth millions. They had built Caldwell Developments from a single crumbling property into an empire that reshaped skylines. They had also missed school plays, birthdays, and final chances. 5 years earlier, an accident on black ice had taken her husband and left her legs useless. The doctors called it survival. Vivian called it exile. She stared at the empty chair across from her, jaw tight, eyes dry but burning. She had learned not to cry in public. Power had taught her that. The restaurant door opened. Cold air rushed in first, sharp and metallic. Then, a man stepped through it as if cut from it. Grant Miller moved with controlled economy, tall and broad-shouldered, his weight favoring the right leg just enough to be noticeable to anyone trained to notice. He was around 40, his build lean but dense, muscle earned and preserved rather than sculpted. His face was sharply angled, cheekbones pronounced, jaw set hard. A trimmed beard shadowed his mouth, already touched with gray. His eyes were dark brown, steady, alert, the kind that never stopped measuring distance and threat. A former Navy SEAL, though the title was not something he announced, it lived in the way he scanned the room before relaxing his shoulders, in the way he positioned himself between exits and what mattered. He wore a navy winter coat to mid-thigh, functional rather than fashionable. Beneath it, a red and black flannel shirt, faded jeans, brown boots worn smooth at the heel. Nothing about him asked for attention. Everything about him warned against underestimation. At his side walked Lily Miller, 6 years old, small and bright-eyed, her blonde hair tucked into a crooked braid that brushed her purple coat. Her cheeks were pink from the cold. There was an openness to her face that had not yet learned caution, a gentleness untouched by fear. Behind them came Coda. The German Shepherd was 5 years old, large and powerfully built, black and tan coat glossy under the lights. He wore a black harness fitted close to his body, a white patch stitched cleanly across it. Service dog, do not pet. His amber eyes moved constantly, ears adjusting to sound, posture calm but ready. He did not pull. He did not lag. He matched Grant step for step, a shadow trained to think. Coda was not aggressive. That was the danger. Grant had not planned to linger. He intended to order something simple, keep Lily warm, then return to their small apartment before the storm worsened. Civilian spaces still made him uneasy. Too many blind spots, too many unknowns. As they waited to be seated, Lily's gaze wandered. Then it stopped. She saw Vivian, a woman alone, not busy alone, not waiting alone, the kind of alone that sat heavy and still, like snow piling on a roof no one checked anymore. Lily slipped her hand free. Grant noticed a half-second too late. "Lily," he said quietly, already moving. but she had crossed the space between tables with the simple certainty of a child who had not yet learned permission was required for kindness. Vivian sensed someone before she heard them. She looked up to find a little girl standing beside her table, eyes level, unafraid. "Ma'am," Lily said softly, as if the room itself might break, "you shouldn't be alone on Christmas." The words struck deeper than Vivian expected. Clean, unpracticed, true. Grant arrived beside his daughter, instinctively placing himself between her and the seated woman, though his tone remained calm. "I'm sorry," he said. "She didn't mean to." "It's all right," Vivian said. Her voice was low, composed, edged with something old and tired. She studied the man now, noting the stillness beneath him, the dog who did not move but saw everything, the way danger would find them a mistake. She felt something stir in her chest. Recognition, perhaps. Lily smiled and held out a folded piece of construction paper, its edges uneven. "I made this." Vivian took it with careful hands. For the first time that night, warmth reached her fingers. Outside, the snow kept falling, and somewhere between a soldier who knew how to end violence and a dog trained to stop it before it began, a lonely woman felt the first crack in 5 years of silence. The paper card and the crack in the heart. Vivian unfolded the card with care, as if the paper itself might bruise. It was thick construction paper, folded unevenly. Crayon lines wavered with a child's patience. 3 stick figures stood hand in hand beneath a crooked star. One figure was small, one tall. The third faded slightly at the edges, drawn lighter, as if it were drifting away. Beside them stood a dog, square and alert, colored in deep brown and black, planted like a sentry. Vivian felt her breath falter. For a moment, the restaurant disappeared. The noise dulled. The lights softened. All she could see was that fading figure in the middle. All she could feel was the weight of what had been lost and what had never been repaired. Her fingers shook despite her effort to still them. Grant noticed immediately. He reached for Lily, not roughly, just enough to reclaim the space. "I'm sorry," he said again, quieter this time. "We didn't mean to intrude. Lily—" "It's fine," Vivian said, sharper than intended, then gentler. "Please." She looked at Lily, really looked at her. The girl's face was open and unguarded. Freckles dusted lightly across her nose, eyes the clear blue of winter sky just before snow. There was no pity there, only concern and certainty. "Who did you draw?" Vivian asked. "That's me," Lily said, pointing. "That's my dad, and that's my mom." She hesitated, then tapped the lighter figure. "She's gone now." Grant's jaw tightened. He did not look at Vivian. He looked at the floor, at Coda's paws aligned perfectly beside his boots. Grant Miller was a man who had learned to keep grief contained, folded neatly away like gear no longer issued but never discarded. Combat had taught him discipline. Loss had taught him silence. "My wife passed 2 years ago," he said at last, voice even, stripped of ornament. "Cancer." Vivian nodded slowly. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it in the way that comes only from understanding. She turned her attention to the dog. Coda remained motionless, body angled slightly outward, as if the room itself were a perimeter. His ears flicked once when a tray clattered at the far end of the restaurant. His eyes never left Grant and Lily for long. He was not looking for affection. He was watching for disruption. "He's trained," Grant said, anticipating the question. "Service dog. And more." Vivian smiled faintly. "I can tell." A pause settled between them. Not awkward, just heavy. "Please," Vivian said, gesturing to the empty chairs. "Sit. I've ordered far too much food, and I'm not hungry enough to justify it." Grant shook his head at once. "That's generous, but we can't—" "Won't," Vivian corrected. "You won't, not can't." Grant met her eyes. Up close he saw the steel beneath the age, the will that had not broken with her body. He recognized it. He had served beside. Men and women forged from the same stubborn alloy. "We're fine," he said carefully. "Really?" Vivian leaned forward just enough for the movement to matter. "If you help me not feel invisible for the next hour," she said, "I'll consider it a fair trade." Grant hesitated. Lily did not. She pulled out the chair and climbed onto it, legs swinging. "Okay," she said brightly, "but Coda sits by Daddy." Coda already had. The dog lowered himself into a sphinx-like rest beside Grant's chair, broad chest forward, tail still, eyes level with the room. Anyone watching closely would notice how the people nearest unconsciously shifted their chairs away from him. Grant exhaled once, slow and resigned. "All right," he said. "For a little while." Vivian nodded as if sealing a contract. A young waiter approached. His name tag read Evan. Early 20s, sandy hair, face flushed from hours on his feet. He glanced at Grant, at the dog, at Vivian, uncertain. "Is everything okay here?" he asked. "Yes," Vivian said. "We'll need 2 more menus." Evan hesitated, then nodded and retreated. Grant leaned closer to Lily. "We're just sitting," he murmured. "That's all." "I know," Lily whispered back. "It's okay." Vivian watched the exchange with something like envy. "I had a son," she said after a moment. "Ethan. He's grown now, or he was the last time we spoke." Grant listened without interrupting. He had learned long ago that silence invited truth. "I was very good at building things," Vivian continued. "Companies, towers, influence." Her mouth curved, humorless. "I was less good at showing up." Lily tilted her head. "Like when my dad misses bedtime?" Grant stiffened. "Lily." "It's all right," Vivian said. "Yes, like that." She folded the card again, carefully, and slipped it into the pocket of her tailored jacket. "I think your drawing might be the most honest thing I have been given in years." Lily smiled. At a nearby table, a man laughed too loudly. Vivian noticed him then, broad, heavy-set, expensive coat thrown carelessly over his chair, mid-40s, sharp features dulled by arrogance. His voice carried easily, his eyes flicked toward their table, lingered too long on Vivian, then on Grant. Grant noticed as well. He shifted just enough to block Lily from view. Coda's ears angled forward. The man smirked, murmured something to his companion, and looked away. Vivian's expression tightened. "That," she said quietly, "is the kind of man who believes power makes him untouchable." Grant's gaze remained steady. "It usually works," he said. "Until it doesn't." Coda did not move, but the room felt different now, as if something had been set in motion. Consequences knock. The laughter in the restaurant had just begun to feel real again when the air changed. It happened the way storms do on the lakefront. Quiet first, a shift in pressure. Then the door opened. The man who entered did not belong to the cold. Derek Harlan moved as if the world were required to make space for him. Mid-40s, broad through the chest, thick at the waist. His tailored charcoal suit cost more than Grant's monthly rent. The fabric stretched tight over a body softened by privilege rather than age. His hair was dark, combed back with deliberate precision, not a strand out of postal place. His face carried sharp features dulled by entitlement, a mouth that smiled easily but never reached the eyes. Derek had learned early that power was not about strength. It was about pressure. Apply it long enough, and most people bent. He spotted Vivian at once. The smile he wore widened, bright and false, as he crossed the room without invitation. He did not look at Grant first. Men like Derek never did. He looked at Vivian, leaned in just enough to perform familiarity, and spoke loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Well," he said, voice smooth with mock warmth. "This is generous of you, Vivian. Christmas charity now? I didn't realize we were hosting guests tonight." A few heads turned. Vivian's jaw tightened. Her fingers curled against the armrest of her chair. Grant felt Lily's shoulders stiffen beside him. "Sir," Grant said evenly, without standing, "you're interrupting a private dinner." Derek finally turned his attention to him. He took in the worn coat, the quiet posture, the dog at Grant's feet. His gaze lingered on Coda with mild irritation, as if the animal were an inconvenience rather than a warning. "And you are?" Derek asked. Grant did not answer. He did not need to. Derek's attention shifted to Lily. She was small in her chair, hands folded in her lap, eyes wide but steady. Derek bent slightly at the waist, just enough to invade her space, his shadow falling across her plate. "You shouldn't wander up to strangers, sweetheart," he said. "It's not safe." Grant's chair scraped softly as he shifted. Not forward, not threatening, just enough. Coda rose. The movement was minimal, controlled. One step forward, broad chest between Derek and the child, head level, eyes locked, no growl, no bark. The silence that followed was louder than noise. People nearby stopped talking. Derek froze. For the first time since entering the restaurant, uncertainty flickered across his face. He took an involuntary step back, recovering quickly, smoothing his jacket with a laugh that came a beat too late. "Put that thing away," he snapped. "This is a public place." "He's trained," Grant said calmly, "and so am I." The words landed heavier than they sounded. Vivian watched Derek closely. She had seen this reaction before, in boardrooms and negotiations. The moment when a bully realized the room was not as safe as he believed. "Derek," she said quietly, "leave." He straightened, irritation replacing surprise. "You're not thinking clearly," he replied. "Look at you, letting some drifter and his mutt sit at your table." His voice sharpened. "The board has concerns, Vivian, about your judgment." Grant's eyes hardened. Vivian felt something inside her snap. "You don't speak to me like that," she said. Derek scoffed. "You're tired, you're emotional, and you're making decisions you'll regret. Signing over authority would be the responsible thing." The words hung in the air, cruel and calculated. Before Vivian could respond, a young waiter approached hesitantly. It was Evan again. His face was pale now, his hands shaking as he leaned close to Vivian's chair. "Ma'am," he whispered, "there's a problem with the payment system. Someone flagged your account. Management thinks it's deliberate." Vivian closed her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, clarity replaced anger. She looked at Derek. He smiled, too quickly. Grant did not understand corporate warfare, but he understood ambush. "That wasn't random," he said. "Call the police, ask for the security footage." Derek's smile faltered. "Don't be ridiculous," he snapped. "Why make a scene?" Vivian met Grant's gaze. For years she had avoided scenes. She had swallowed insults, chosen silence over conflict. That silence had cost her more than she could measure. "Do it," she said. Evan hesitated, then nodded and hurried away. Derek's composure cracked. "You're overreacting," he said sharply. "Think about your reputation." "My reputation," Vivian replied, "survived losing my leaks. It will survive losing you." The manager arrived, then security. Footage was pulled. It did not take long. Derek's assistant appeared on screen near the payment terminal, hands moving where they should not have been. Time-stamped. Clear. Murmurs spread through the restaurant. Derek's face drained of color. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, backing away. "We'll discuss this privately." "No," Vivian said. "We won't." She turned to Grant. "Thank you," she said. Not for the suggestion, for the spine it gave her. Grant nodded once. Coda sat. Derek was escorted out. The door closed behind him with a finality that echoed. The room slowly returned to life. Lily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Daddy," she whispered. "Coda was brave." Grant rested his hand on the dog's head. He was doing his job. Vivian looked at the card in her pocket. For the first time in years, she felt something shift. Justice, she realized, didn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrived because someone refused to look away. Truth unveiled, an offer extended, and the beginning of change. Morning arrived quietly, wrapped in fresh snow. Chicago looked softer from above, the sharp edges of the city muted beneath white rooftops and frozen streets. From the windows of Vivian Caldwell's penthouse, Lake Michigan stretched gray and endless, its surface broken only by wind and drifting ice. Vivian sat near the glass, wrapped in a wool shawl the color of ash. Daylight revealed details the restaurant lighting had hidden. Her face was thinner than it once had been, cheekbones more pronounced, the skin along her jaw almost translucent. Yet her eyes were clear, awake, more present than they had been in years. She heard the elevator before the knock. Grant arrived exactly on time. He stood in the doorway with the same quiet readiness he carried everywhere. Clean jeans this time, a simple dark sweater, his hair still short, still practical, his beard trimmed with the precision of habit. Old injuries made him cautious with steps on polished floors, but he did not limp. Lily bounced in ahead of him, boots leaving small wet prints on the marble. "Wow," she breathed. "It's like the sky lives here." Coda entered last. He paused at the threshold, amber eyes scanning the open space, ears adjusting to the echo of height and glass. 5 years old, fully grown, powerful without bulk. He moved inside only after Grant did, settling into position near the window where he could see both the room and the city beyond. The dog was calm, still, alert in a way that never truly rested. Vivian noticed everything. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know last night was a lot." Grant nodded once. "We didn't stay long." "No," Vivian replied, But you stayed when it mattered. She gestured toward the sitting area. Coffee steamed on a low table. Plates of fruit and bread waited untouched. Grant did not sit immediately. Old instincts told him this place was too open, too exposed. Coda shifted subtly, aligning himself between Lily and the door. Vivian saw it and surprised him by smiling. "Relax," she said. "If anyone dangerous gets past him, I deserve what happens." Grant almost smiled back. They sat. Vivian did not waste time. "I had my legal team pull everything from last night," she said. Payment logs, security footage, Derek's emails. Her fingers tightened briefly around the porcelain cup. He didn't act alone. Grant listened, silent. "I could have buried it," Vivian continued. "Made it disappear the way I've done for decades." She met Grant's eyes. "I didn't. I won't anymore." Lily swung her legs. "Bad men shouldn't hide," she said simply. Vivian nodded. "No, they shouldn't." She stood, or rather transferred carefully from her chair, with practiced determination, gripping the armrest. Grant rose instinctively, but she waved him off. "I've fallen before," she said. "It didn't kill me." They took the elevator down together. The building Vivian brought them to sat on the west side of the city, red brick darkened by age and neglect. Once grand, now forgotten. Tall arched windows boarded over, ironwork rusted but intact. Snow gathered along its steps like a shroud. Grant stopped short. He recognized good bones when he saw them. "This was our first headquarters," Vivian said, "built in 1898, abandoned 10 years ago, when restoring it seemed inconvenient." She watched Grant as he walked the perimeter, eyes tracing load-bearing walls, cornices, the slope of the roof. His hands twitched with memory. "This place doesn't need to be replaced," he said. "It needs respect." Vivian's breath caught. Inside, dust floated in cold light. Footsteps echoed. Coda padded silently across broken tile, nose low, reading the past in scent and shadow. Vivian turned to Grant. "I want to turn this into a training center," she said. "For veterans, for kids who can't afford college, craft, restoration, skills that last." She hesitated. "I want you to run it." Grant froze. "That's charity," he said. "No," Vivian replied. "It's work." He shook his head. "You don't know me." "I know enough," she said. "You didn't escalate last night. You didn't threaten. You controlled the situation. That's leadership." Grant's jaw tightened. A memory surfaced, uninvited. Sarah. She had been slender, slightly taller than Lily would be one day. Soft brown hair always escaping its tie. Skin warm and freckled from afternoons spent outside. Sarah laughed easily, but there was steel beneath it. She had believed in building things slowly, correctly. She had died the same way she lived, quietly brave. She had once told him, "If you ever get the chance to build something that helps others stand on their own, don't walk away from it." Grant looked at Lily. She met his gaze with serious eyes. "Daddy," she said, "you fix broken things." Coda rose and stood at Grant's side, solid and steady. Grant exhaled. "I don't believe in luck," he said. "I believe in work." Vivian nodded. "So do I." They stood there, the three of them, surrounded by dust and possibility. Outside, snow kept falling. And for the first time since Sarah died, Grant felt the faint outline of a future that didn't end in survival alone. A chosen family and a Christmas no longer empty. The city learned the truth slowly, not with headlines that screamed, but with records released, accounts frozen, signatures retracted. Derek Harlan did not fall because someone pushed him. He fell because light reached places he believed were forever dark. Investigations followed, quiet ones, thorough ones. His title vanished first, then his allies, then the careful distance people once kept out of fear. Power, it turned out, was brittle when stripped of lies. Vivian Caldwell watched it unfold from her office, not with satisfaction, but with relief. At 73, she had no appetite left for revenge. What she wanted now was alignment, between words and actions, between money and meaning. The building on the west side changed faster than anyone expected. Dust gave way to scaffolding. Broken windows were replaced with glass that caught the winter sun. The old brick was cleaned by hand, not blasted, its scars preserved instead of erased. Grant Miller moved through the site like a man who finally knew where he belonged. He wore work boots now, steel-toed and scuffed, a hard hat perched low over his brow. His shoulders remained broad, his movements precise, but the tension that once lived permanently between them had eased. He spoke little, listened more, and demanded discipline without cruelty. Men and women listened. Some were veterans, some were barely out of high school, others had records that made doors close before they could knock. Grant did not ask for explanations. He asked for effort. Coda was always there. 5 years old, his black and tan coat dusted now with construction grit, he lay near Grant's desk, or paced the perimeter of the site. Workers learned quickly that the dog did not respond to shouting or bravado. He responded to intent. Anyone who tried to intimidate, cut corners, or posture too loudly found themselves staring into amber eyes that measured them with unnerving calm. No bites, no barks, just the knowledge that lines existed. Lily claimed a corner of the office as her own. She sat on a tall stool, legs swinging, crayons spread across blueprints that Grant kept separate just for her. She drew people with hard hats, dogs with badges, and buildings that smiled. Sometimes she drew her mother, soft brown hair, gentle eyes, standing nearby as if watching. Grant noticed. He said nothing. He had learned that some things were meant to be carried quietly. The apprenticeship program filled faster than expected. One of the first to enroll was Marcus Reed, 19 years old, tall and thin, shoulders still rounded by years of keeping his head down. His hair was cropped close, his hands rough from fast food kitchens and odd jobs. His mother was sick. School had ended early, talent had nowhere to go. Grant put a hammer in his hand. "Learn this," he said, "and then learn why." Marcus learned fast, so did the others. Vivian visited the site weekly, sometimes in her wheelchair, sometimes standing with her cane, refusing help unless absolutely necessary. The workers straightened when she arrived, not from fear, but respect. She spoke to them as people, asked their names, remembered them. That was new. The real surprise came in early December. Ethan Caldwell stood in the doorway of the penthouse one evening, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets, uncertainty written across his face. He was in his early 40s, tall like his mother, but broader through the shoulders. His hair, once dark, showed strands of gray at the temples. His skin carried the pallor of someone who spent more time in airports than sunlight. He looked tired in a way sleep did not fix. Vivian froze. "Mom," he said. The word landed gently, carefully, as if afraid it might shatter. She wheeled forward before she realized she was moving. "I saw the building," Ethan said. "The program, the interviews." He swallowed. "You're different." Vivian smiled, small and real. "So are you. You came." They did not fix everything that night. They did not need to. Some wounds healed best when given space to breathe. Christmas returned to Chicago with familiar snow. This time, the penthouse glowed. The table was full. Plates passed hand to hand. Laughter rose and fell without effort. Vivian sat at the head in her wheelchair, wrapped in a soft cardigan, her silver hair looser than before. Ethan sat beside her, leaning in when she tired. Grant sat across, sleeves rolled, relaxed in a way he had not been in years. Coda lay beneath the table, head on his paws, one eye open. Always one. Lily handed Vivian a card. It was folded neatly this time, edges careful. Inside, a drawing showed a table filled with people, a dog beneath it, a city outside the window. At the bottom, in careful letters, "Family is where people choose to stay." Vivian pressed the card to her chest. Grant watched his daughter, then looked around the room. He understood something then. Some battles were not won with force. Some missions did not require orders. Sometimes, all it took was a child brave enough to speak to a stranger, and an old woman willing to open the door she had locked for too long. Outside, snow fell quietly. Inside, no one was alone. Some people call it coincidence. Others call it kindness. But there are moments in life that feel too precise to be random. On that cold Christmas night in Chicago, no angel appeared in the sky. No thunder rolled. No voice spoke from above. The miracle came quietly. It came as a child who refused to walk past someone in pain. It came as a soldier who chose restraint over force. It came as a woman who finally opened her heart instead of closing another deal. That is often how God works. Not through spectacle, but through people, through small choices, through courage that looks ordinary until it changes everything. In our daily lives, we may not see miracles as bright flashes of light, but they are there when you choose to help instead of ignore. When you stand up for what is right, even when it is uncomfortable, when you show up for someone who feels invisible. Maybe today, you are the one who needs that miracle, or maybe you are meant to be it for someone else. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope tonight. Leave a comment and tell us where you are watching from. And subscribe to this channel for more stories of faith, courage, and quiet miracles. May God bless you and your family. May He protect those who feel alone. And may He guide us to be instruments of His love, one small act at a time.